Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 6th, 2024 at about 5:35 p.m., and we are calling this regular meeting of the Wake County Board of Education to order. I want to welcome everyone who might be watching at home and those of you who are joining us here in person tonight. Wake County Board of Education meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the official business of the school system. The public is cordially invited to attend board meetings to observe as the board as it conducts its business. Persons who willfully interrupt, disrupt, or cause disturbances at an official meeting may be directed to leave by the presiding officer. Members of the audience should show respect for the speakers by refraining from loud comments or other disruptions. Disruptions by any person or persons of a public meeting will be subject to action in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318-17. And at this point, we would ask all attendees to take a seat and remain seated. We do have a quorum tonight. Ms. Mahaffey is not here, but Mr. Swanson is joining us electronically by WebEx. So with 7 members, we do have a quorum. Now I'd like to ask everyone to rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. As we open the meeting, we will turn to our superintendent, Dr. Robert Taylor, for his comments this evening. Dr. Taylor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us at tonight's board meeting. I have a lot of good news to share with you this evening, starting with the 47 magnet schools that have been honored by Magnet Schools of America with National Merit Awards. 14 schools were named to top schools of excellence, 10 named schools of excellence, and 23 named schools of distinction. This marks the highest number of awards for excellence our district has ever received in 1 year. Schools are recognized for demonstrated commitment to high academic standards, curriculum innovation, desegregation and diversity, and consistent delivery of high-quality education. Since 1982, our magnet programs have served as a national model promoting academic achievement and diverse student populations. Clearly, the tradition continues to this date. So again, congratulations to the students, families, and staff of all these outstanding schools. I also have some very encouraging news to share about our efforts to support academic recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic. Researchers from Harvard University and Stanford University earlier this week released their Education Recovery Scorecard comparing learning loss and recovery in school districts across the country. The study found that math and reading overall scores for grades 3 through 8 have essentially returned to pre-pandemic levels in Wake County. This puts us well ahead of the state of North Carolina as a whole. I think this is great news. Our academic recovery also has outpaced the other school districts in the state of similar size. I believe one critical factor in this success is the intentional investment in our staff. Using federal COVID relief dollars as well as local funds, we invested in hundreds of new positions to support students. That included new intervention teachers, school counselors, psychologists, bless you, sir, and social workers. We also added one full-time substitute teaching position at every school, and our principals have talked about the tremendous difference that makes. And we provided our employees with 4 retention bonuses of $1,250 each, contributing to a staff retention rate that was the highest among our peer districts. Our staff is our greatest strength and our most critical asset when it comes to student achievement. This study shows how important it will be to maintain the strategically grow our staff even when COVID relief funds expire. And so that is why we want to be explicit about the importance of supporting our staff and how we need to compensate them appropriately. Now, speaking of our hardworking staff, this week, the National School Counseling Week, a time to recognize our school counselors for everything they do to support students and families. The work of school counselors has never been more vital to student success. The pandemic has demonstrated in no uncertain terms how critical it is to support the whole child, and school counselors do just that, addressing both academic and social needs. Even before the pandemic, this board recognized the need to increase our student support staff and has worked with our county commissioners and more to add this essential personnel. And so I want to share, I had an opportunity to visit the state board meeting this past week, and that was the the North Carolina Counseling Diamond Award. It's a state award that they give out. And so schools were recognized in the state that received the Diamond Award. And all of these schools were at the state board. And so I want to read the names of all of these state recognized schools. Mills Park Elementary School, Wake County. Brooks Magnet Museum Elementary School, Wake County. Silver City Elementary School, that was Chatham County. Neuse River Middle School, Wake County. Roseville Middle School, Wake County. Wake Forest Middle School, Wake County. Garnet Magnet High School, Wake County. And Score Academy, Wake County. And so what that shows us is that at a state recognition level, Wake County swept the board. And so I think that is something that we definitely need to celebrate. Next week is Love the Bus Week, a time for all of us to show our appreciation for our bus drivers. Our schools always do a great job finding ways to celebrate drivers, and I know this year will be no exception. Look for photos of these celebrations on social media by searching the hashtag WCPSS Loves the Bus. I'd also like to take the opportunity now to express my gratitude for our drivers. They take pride in the fact that their work gives tens of thousands of students the opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed every day. So we can't say enough about how we recognize our bus drivers. And lastly, February is Career and Technical Education Month, a time to recognize and celebrate the achievements and accomplishments of CTE partners at the local, state, and national level. So our school system is fortunate to have more than 700 dedicated CTE professionals who put students first. And so with that, I will yield my time back to the chair. I do want to recognize this is Black History Month. I think this month has done so much in recognizing all marginalized populations, and we have seen that expansion across so many different celebrations. I do want to recognize that this month we celebrate Black history. Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Taylor. A couple of things to talk about tonight. A couple of things. I would appreciate you lifting up the National Counseling Week. I mean, I could just know from my personal experience, school counselors played an important role in my life. And if it wasn't for one of my high school counselors, Miss Farrell, I would not have gotten my college applications finished and submitted, and it would have been an entirely different story. So just you know, it's so important to lift them up, remember all year, but especially this week. So thank you for that recognition. Also, we had the event earlier today. I got to see many of you at the Tools for Schools opening. Our community partner, WakeEd Partnership, is continuing this project. It started in 2022, making classroom supplies available for any of our public school teachers that want to come out and get them. Since opening in 2022, they've raised and distributed almost $770,000 worth of classroom supplies for students in our classrooms. Last year they had about over 3,300 of our teachers that were able to come in, and teachers in every school, every public school in Wake County were able to come in and take advantage of that service. This is something that you know is provided through our partner with the WakeEd Partnership. Several people in the community, business leaders, community leaders that come together and through their generosity find ways to support our schools, support our teachers, and support our students. So we're very thankful for them. In return, I've promised that I will do my best to encourage people to come to the store to volunteer, spend a little bit of time helping out, distributing these supplies, sorting supplies. We have generous donations from the community, but they all come in together, and we have to get them organized and available so teachers can get in, find them, and move on. And then, of course, if anyone's interested in providing these supplies through a local drive in a work, in a neighborhood, a church, or community, you can contact the WakeEd Partnership for that, too. It's a wonderful service. The new store is located at 1816 Capitol Boulevard, right in the heart of Raleigh. It's right off the Beltline at the old Bobby Murray Chevrolet site, and they have done a lot to make that site look a lot better than it used to look in past years. So, again, please, if you're interested, lend a helping hand to the folks at Wake Ed Partnership with the Tools for Schools store. Now, in addition to Dr. Taylor's comments, and then we'll have a public information item on this, but I also want to wish everyone a happy Black History Month. And I thought one of the things that we could do especially is take an opportunity to recognize some of the trailblazers that we've seen here in Wake County in our own public education system. You know, there's a rich history, there's a national history, there's a state history, but just even Wake County public school system has several individuals you may or may not be aware of, but whose names should be lifted up and honored this month. And I thought it would be appropriate, one of the first that I wanted to recognize was Dr. Bob Bridges. Dr. Bob Bridges was the first black superintendent in Wake County Public Schools. I have his name on my high school diploma. He was superintendent when I came through. And you may know that Dr. Bridges was the father of Dr. Randy Bridges, who was our interim superintendent, who I know we all think so highly of. If you don't know about his father, Dr. Bridges was an administrator here in Wake County at the height of this district's efforts to integrate the school systems. We had the merger between the county and the city school systems. And Dr. Bob Bridges had been a principal at Hunter Elementary, at Crosby Garfield Elementary, which eventually became Crosby Garfield Sixth Grade Center. And then after the merger, he served as the district's first black superintendent and really had to put policy and practices into effect to help integrate the schools and help develop our fledgling magnet school program. So we moved away from a policy of forced busing to try to encourage more voluntary integration, and Dr. Bridges was able to really pioneer a lot of those programs. So, you know, in a way, he's responsible for so much of what we've enjoyed here and what makes Wake County unique from a lot of other school districts, especially school districts our size. Recognizing the history of our own school board, I tried to go back and pull a couple of names. When our school board, the Wake County Public School System was created, you know, from the merger between Raleigh City Schools and Wake County Schools. And I wanted to recognize another former school leader, the late Vernon Malone, who was a former state senator, former county commissioner. Here he's had some distinguished offspring, but I'm not going to name any names. But he was also the first black chairman of the Wake County Public School System and father of our board attorney, Mr. Rod Malone. This was someone who came before my time. I had to research a little bit about her, but Miss Clafonia Wimberly was not only one of the first black teachers to integrate Wake County schools, but also became the first black chairwoman of the Wake County Public School System. Yeah, I was familiar with Harriet Webster and Rosa Gill.
She was with Vernon.
And she had served with Vernon. So I want to lift up Miss Clafonia Wimberly's name as well and her role. Now, I had to do a little bit of information on this, and I might need some fact checking. We know the first school board chair, male and female, but then who was the first black member of the school board in Wake County? And so I had to go back. I believe that it was a Dr. Nicholas Franklin Roberts, going way back to the end of the 19th century, 1897. He was an educator, a professor, I believe, of mathematics, a preacher, and played a prominent role in Shaw University. I don't know if he was president or provost, but had been
President for a very short time.
okay, but then was one of the first elected members, also a Raleigh City Alderman. So it goes back a long ways, and then there was a significant gap between his service and our next black school board members. But that is an important part of our history. Finally, we have some trailblazers of our own currently on the board. For years, starting way back with Dr. Roberts, we've had African Americans who've served on our Board of Education. But we'd never had two African Americans serving at the same time on our Board of Education until the election of not then Vice Chair, but now Vice Chair and former Chair, Miss Monica Johnson-Hostler, who joined with Keith Sutton for the first time in Wake County's history that we had two black school board members. And then in 2022, we made history again for the very first time in our county's history when we had three black board members elected, with Mr. Tyler Swanson, who's joining us virtually, joining Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler, and our former member, Miss Tara Waters, for the first time. So it's recent history, but it's still history. And so I just want to, these are historic firsts. We want to recognize them, and they should not be taken for granted, because you saw the time it took from our first member all the way through to the time when we might have 3 members serving on the board on its own. So thank you for your service, and that concludes my remarks, and I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Johnson Hostler.
Thank you very much. And some of you may remember I had the great fortune to go to the historical marker for Dr. Franklin Roberts, which is actually history I didn't know until I attended his historic marker. So thank you for lifting that up, Chair Haggerty. I had the great opportunity of knowing both Senator Malone and Miss Wimberly, who I got to know when I ran for school board, because everyone reminded me that the two of them, they were on different boards when the boards merged, one on city and one on county. When they merged, essentially they were historically should be captured as the first time 2 black members served together, but a lot of people don't capture that history because it was during the merger. And so we did a great deal of history. I can't take credit. Miss Allen did a great deal of that history so that we could actually accurately reflect. And literally it was almost 30 years to the date when I joined Keith Sutton as a second black board member, and we were able to acknowledge the trailblazing work that people have done. So thank you very much for lifting that up. And certainly one of a teacher, who I will say her name, Miss Oliver, actually assistant principal, took a very wonderful photo when we did the march at Southeast Raleigh High School of myself, Mr. Swanson, Ms. Waters, and Dr. Taylor, and it was at that moment that none of us had realized that that was also history. And so I will forever keep that picture, and it's currently posted to my social media. And I think it's important to say here, while we have so many students in front of us, you never know when you'll make history. And sometimes you don't know you made history until someone actually lets you know that. And so just a reminder that representation certainly matters. Because again, I moved here and got to know Senator Malone very well, and would have never imagined that I'd be sitting in a seat to speak to, literally did never imagine sitting here and being able to speak to standing on the shoulders of such giants that I've had the opportunity to meet. So I'm extending that to our young people who are in the room to hear that. And Mr. Swanson is not here, but also extending the fact that he is a very youthful board member. And so also recognizing that age is also a representation, that we often assume that people look a certain way or a certain age when they can create history, but many of you are creating history right now in your own right. So thank you to our students, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak directly to them today. Especially because this month is important, and I tell people all the time, while it may be the shortest month of the year, I celebrate Black History 365, and so should you. And so thank you to my colleagues. Dr. Taylor has already mentioned our magnet schools, as well as our Diamond and Ramp Awards, which I will just highlight. Garner Magnet High School, in addition to getting their Diamond Award, also got their Ramp Award, which many of us as board members are a part of. So congratulations to all of them for their hard work, and that was especially exciting, I hear, from our school counselors who were able to be in person at the school board meeting, as this week is recognizing our school counselors. So for all of our young people and educators in the room, don't forget to thank a school counselor for their work this week. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson Hostler. At this point, if he is ready and available, I'd like to call on Mr. Swanson, joining us via WebEx.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? I can't see you all if you're giving me thumbs up.
Sorry. Yes, we hear you just fine, Mr. Swanson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. We're all aligned with our remarks this evening, but I just want to emphasize that, this is a Black History Month, this is American History Month. And these injustices that we've witnessed came out to be something that was so beautiful. And Ms. Chair Haggerty, you already mentioned a lot of my talking points tonight, but I'm honored to serve and to be a representation. This is historic for all of us. And in the 48 years that we've only had 8 Black school board members. And so that's historic. And I hope our students are able to see themselves in everything that we do. I want to thank Dr. Taylor for joining District 9's BAC meeting last week, where we were able to really take Vice Chair Hostler's approach and do some breakouts before and come up with some topics for Dr. Taylor to address. So thank you for being flexible and engaging with us. I also had the privilege a couple of weeks ago, I think, of joining Vice Chair Hostler, and we toured Connections Academy and Crossroads Flex, which are two amazing schools that we have all across this district, but really two that are near and dear to our hearts. And so just want to give a great shout out to Principal Perkins for their hard work at Connections and Principal Patron at Crossroads Flex. And so I believe that is all of my remarks. I seem to have left my notebook at home that has some more remarks, so I will leave it there and just close by saying originally when Black History Month was created back in the early 1900s with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, it was Negro Week. In between the birth date of Frederick Douglass and President Lincoln, those were the two that they had symbolically chosen to leverage their great work. And now we have went from an entire month. And so I think that history is very important, and we remember the whys and also understand that we just don't need a special day or a special month to celebrate everyone's contributions, but we live into those moments. And when you see something that's not just, that's not moral, that you speak up and you speak out, and that you create your own legacy, and not just the legacy for today, but the legacy for tomorrow. And so I hope our students are able to lean into their power and be those change agents that they want to see, because the world is yours, and it's up to you to figure out how to make that beloved community your own. So those are my remarks for the evening, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Ms. Caulfield, welcome back. We are glad to have you. If you are ready, please share your comments.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is this thing on? Okay. Okay. I am glad to be back too. Thank you. The last month for me was a bit of a challenge, some medical issues, so I love that I'm back, and I appreciate all of the patience that everybody has, and both all the not only the board and helping me keep up with everything that was happening here, but also being patient with the emails and trying to answer everybody back. So thank you for your kindness and your messages. I mentioned this challenge because we also speak about mental health many times, and we will continue to do so. The reference of silos has come up, and it's a description of the challenges that we face. So it really describes the wall that could prevent progress. And it's the very conversation that happens between those silos is what could break the walls down and the barriers and open up great conversation so that we could find out the best ways that we could approach either for a patient, a student, or anybody that's in need of mental health. And I mention this because in the middle of a big organization taking over, in this case, the medical field, struggles with everything from appointments, connecting doctors, phone calls, everything that went along. It was a long process, and it was very frustrating. And I realized all of these walls that stood in my way. And it wasn't restrictions on my end. It wasn't me not trying to be diligent or ask the right questions. It was just a challenge of the process and what was all the technicalities that were standing in the way. I know that many people around me share this frustration, especially when it comes to mental health and the struggles of trying to reach out and find resources. And I realized how much this silo effect stood in the way of moving forward, getting to the next step. There's such a disconnect there. So, I mean, I know we see this in corporations, we see it in the medical field, we definitely see it in the mental health field. And sometimes even our parents come to us, with the same frustrations. Even the students feel, disconnected from their school or from their parents or from their teachers and not knowing where to go. So Wake County doesn't stand alone with this. I think this is a nationwide thing, but it's our responsibility to tackle our challenges here with our children. So I'd like to accept this challenge and ask the board to keep the word silos in our minds when we approach these challenges. It's between those walls that those good conversations are going to get to the heart of our struggles. I truly believe that we can turn around our challenges and turn around even, some of our successes and make them even better. So I hope this year we could all focus a little bit more on that space in between, the space between that connects the dots, the space in between those silos that's a valuable piece that could make a difference in the outcome. That being said, each year I pick a word. Last year it was engagement. And although I don't plan to stop on that goal, and I see that our board in general is really kind of moving forward with that. So I think that's going to be wonderful for us to also empower our parents and families to come and work with us as a team. So I had tea time. We met with Wake Med at trying to open up some more doors and possibilities in regards to our mental health. Worked with other organizations and entities to try and get our communities more involved. And the engagement with families and community is going to be imperative towards the success as we come together as a community for the success of our students. This year, my word is going to be purposeful. So purpose of my time and space and good use of being on the board, which means focusing on my original goals for our students and our teachers, bullying and discipline, mental health, our curriculum, parent engagement, academic gaps. I think a lot of these discussions have happened over the past year, and I really look forward to the movement in those categories. I love this new engagement committee that has come up, and I hope that it really brings our community together even more, along with the support of Dr. Taylor and the work that he has in store after his first 100 years. So I look forward to all of that, and I want to wish everybody a happy Black History Month. I love hearing all of the history that you're sharing and everyone that you're lifting up. And you're right, it's not just a day, an all-year celebration of your accomplishments, everyone's accomplishments. And I hope that our children do hear that message, because they are capable and, very willing. You go into the schools and you see these kids who are eager. And I hope they get that message. They can accomplish anything they want. When my kids were growing up, I always used to tell them, reach for the stars, you never know what you'll find. And I hope each and every one of them do continue to reach for those stars. And I'm excited to see everyone perform today. That's it.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Caulfield. We'll come back around the other way. Mr. Hershey, if you're ready.
Sure, thank you. First, I just want to say how incredibly important it is that we recognize Black History Month. I'm very much looking forward to the presentations, and I was in here listening to some of the singing prior, and it was wonderful and fantastic, and I'm looking forward to them sharing that with everybody. Black history is American history, and for far too long in this country, and I intentionally say it, that we whitewashed history and we did not recognize the vital role that Black Americans and Black people have played in this country. And so it's very important. It's a very important month, both here and it should be across this country. It's important that, and I'm going to bring in that, some people continue to try to dismiss this month and the importance of it, and we need to push back always. I find it particularly important as a white male to say we have to push back against that. We have to push back against those that want to ban books that take away and try to diminish the accomplishments and everything that Black people have, all the roles that they have played in this nation and all their accomplishments and all the, just everything that they have done. And we have to just push back, and it is my role and my job to do so. So I very much look forward to celebrating this month, and again, the presentations that are coming today. And I also want to acknowledge, though, that in Wake County, I think we do a very good job of teaching real history, just based on my son's experiences and what he brings home to me and what he talks about. And so that's a shout out to his teachers at Douglas Elementary School for the job they are doing as well. Turning away from that, and I'm going to apologize to the indispensable Melissa Allen over there, because I do not think I told her that the next BAC meeting for District 6 will be February 26th at Martin Middle School from 12 to 1, and it will be a facilities focus. And for those of you that may not know who Melissa Allen is, she keeps this board functioning. She is so vital to everything we do and keeping us on time and in the know, and I appreciate her so much. I want to congratulate all of our mid-year graduates. A lot of ceremonies over the last couple of weeks. I had the honor of attending Sanderson High School last Thursday. Wonderful presentation, and I just wish all of our graduates all the best in their future endeavors. This last Saturday, I underdressed for flag football at Roseville High School. It was very cold out, but I got the opportunity to watch our student athletes play. It was fantastic. I hope that the plan is for us to move forward in warmer months and not in January and February with flag football. And if we do so, and when we do so, that we make sure that we are giving them the proper respect through the equipment and the facilities and everything that goes into it. It's a great start, but I just would like to see us build on it. And all the student athletes that I spoke to loved playing. They appreciated it. They want to keep doing it, and they just said, please, not in January. Lastly, I want to acknowledge and thank our Leadership Academy students and families for their passion and their commitment to our academies. I've had a couple of meetings with numerous parents and phone calls, and I see that we have some speakers here tonight who are going to be speaking, and there are some, I just appreciate their willingness to communicate and collaborate on the future of the Leadership Academies, and I just want them to know that they are being heard and that I am sharing this information with my fellow board members, so you are being heard loud and clear. And that is it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hershey. Dr. Ng.
Good evening, and I also want to say happy Black History Month. At the same time, a lot has already been said, and I don't need to belabor the point, but I do want to also focus on the future. I actually was in attendance at the report to the community Dr. Taylor gave on January 25th at Broughton High School. And I really appreciated his reflections on what he saw during his tour of the schools and the community in his first 100 days. We do have a lot to be proud of, and it was quite a celebration. I especially enjoyed the musical and dance talent that we have in our schools. They should be booked for something, I want to thank all the elected officials who came to join in the celebration. And as Dr. Taylor says, we have a lot to be proud of, but also, we have a lot to work on still. And we cannot rest on our laurels, and we are still working to recover from learning loss that we have faced in the previous years. And even when we have made some improvements, we have to continue to exceed our own expectations. And speaking of exceeding expectations, I had the honor last week of representing the Board of Education and attended a couple of mid-year graduations at Millbrook High School and at Heritage High School. I really enjoyed listening to the accomplishments of the students. At a Heritage High School, they actually had the parents write something kind of to honor their child, and it was very, very sweet. I was really impressed with many of the students who were already working while they were completing their coursework, and already have a clear path, career path in their mind. I really see a level of maturity on display because they were taking their future in their own hands. It may or may not involve having a college degree, but it does require a certain amount of grit and determination. So I really admire that in those graduates. Today I had the opportunity to visit Millbrook High School and to see the great things going on there. I got to see some of the IB classes, and I can imagine some of the future engineers and future scientists will come from those classrooms. And it is really the best part of a magnet school program, you know, to attract the best students and to develop the hidden potential of all the students. I also got to see the excellent agricultural program from today. And they were, you know, really learning some of the essential skills in trade for a technical career. It's a unique program because it comprises 3 branches: mechanical, animal science, and horticulture. And I got to meet Wilma the wildcat, their unofficial mascot. She's a really cute cat who kind of roams the campus freely. And I also got to meet some of the reptiles. They weren't roaming though. They were in their containers. The fish, and I went into the see some of the goats on campus. They did a good job eating those Christmas trees, by the way. The students got to learn a lot about responsibilities of taking care of the animals. And I really can see that all the IB and Ag teachers love what they do and that they are an inspiration for all the students. So I really want to thank Dr. Saunders, the principal at Millbrook High School, for showing me around and for his leadership there. I think he really is instrumental in having a good faculty there. So I look forward to visiting some more schools in the next few days, this week and next week. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ring. Ms. Edmonds, do you want to close us out?
I do. Thank you. Students, thank you for this. I'm also excited about your performance, and the 22nd is already on my calendar, so thank you so much, and happy Black History Month. I feel like I talked about this last meeting, but I do want to congratulate again all the mid-year graduates across the district, including those at Athens Drive High School and Middle Creek. I was not able to be at Athens ceremony, but I attended Middle Creek's, and I extend my best wishes to all of those students and their families. Speaking of Middle Creek, I want to thank the staff there for inviting me to be a part of their advisory board for their Academy of Professional Educators. This is a new career academy located at Middle Creek High School as we seek to recruit young people into the teaching profession and hopefully foster positive relationships that will bring them into our fold and into the Wake County public school system as teachers. I'm extremely excited about this new opportunity for myself and for our students. And speaking of Middle Creek High School, congratulations to Davis Clark, a senior at Middle Creek, for being selected as a quiz kit advocate. I'd have no idea what I'm saying. I'm borrowing from WRAL, who I will shout out in just a second, but he was recruited to tackle the science of quantum computing. Davis is one of only 37 chosen internationally for the class of 2023, and one of just 10 researchers his age selected for this program. Davis, we're proud of you. Congratulations, and thank you, WRAL, for highlighting his achievement. Congratulations to the 47 magnet schools recently honored by Magnet Schools of America. I will shout out those in District 5, Athens Drive, A.B. Combs, Dillard Elementary and Dillard Middle, Washington Elementary, and Vernon Malone College and Career Academy. All of our magnet schools represent some of the great choice that is offered within this school district. Congratulations to the more than 300 employees who achieved or renewed their national board certification. This certification process is rigorous, requiring hundreds of hours of work. We are proud of you. We thank you for serving in our district and look forward to celebrating you at an event next month. Thank you to all the staff and others that put together the Value Summit that was held last week related to facilities and transportation. Mr. Hershey and Ms. Mahaffey and I were all there. We explored ways in which WCPSS can further our sustainability goals. A special thank you to one of our educators, Laura Wood, for all of her efforts, for her contributions at the summit, and a lot of other work that she puts into this work on behalf of our district. I was excited to attend the opening of the new location of Tools for Schools. Several of you mentioned that. This is a store where teachers can go and shop for free for materials for their classroom, and we are so grateful to WakeEd Partnership and all of the community partners, both individuals and businesses that contribute to this effort. The fact that we don't get the support that we need, that our educators need from the state, makes this a necessary endeavor. But as the director of WakeEd Partnership said earlier today, we would love for the legislature to put Tools for Schools out of business and have that not be a need, and instead have the state fully fund our classrooms and fully fund what students and teachers need. And remember that when you vote this year. This is an election year, so support candidates that pledge to fully fund public schools. Finally, I want to share a really cool contest that is open to all high school students in Wake County Public Schools. It's through the City of Raleigh, and it's a Trashin' show. We have shown, you and I both brought props today. So this, you can't really see it on the camera, but I pulled this off of the City of Raleigh's website. It's a contest for students to create clothing made from recyclable materials. It is open to City of Raleigh residents ages 14 and up, and to any high school students enrolled in Wake County Public Schools, even if you're not a City of Raleigh resident. So the deadline to enter is March 1st, and you can learn more at raleighnc.gov, Trashin' Show. That's Trashion, or Trashin' Competition, anyway, where you can learn more. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Edmonds. That concludes our board comments. At this point in the meeting, we would need to approve our meeting agenda. I know that we have 2 amendments. Let's see. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler, I'll recognize you first.
Thank you very much, Chair. Per Board Member Cheryl Caulfield, she's asked to please remove "We Need Diverse Books" from the agenda for future discussion, and it's listed under under grants, competitive number 204-2224, and we're asking that that be removed from the agenda tonight.
Thank you, Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Ng. Now, because we have a member participating remotely, we will be taking all of our votes by roll call. So we will continue our familiar practice, starting with our leadoff, Mr. Hershey.
Aye.
Dr. Ng?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Nay.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
No.
Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right. By the vote, count of the vote, the ayes have it, and the item has been removed from the agenda. Next, we have another amendment to the agenda. I believe Ms. Edmonds?
Yes, Chair Haggerty, I would like to move items F and G that are under academic advancement to action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler. All in favor of the amendment to the agenda described by Ms. Edmonds, taking those items off academic advancement consent agenda and moving to action, please signify on the roll call vote, starting with Mr. Hershey.
Aye.
Dr. Ng?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Those items will be moved from consent to action. So next on our agenda that we have just adopted, we will go to our information item. We'll recognize Dr. Robinson, our Chief of Staff, for our Black History Month presentation. All right, it looks like we will recognize Dr. Will Chavis, leading off our Black History Month presentation. Welcome, Dr. Chavis.
Thank you. I, too, sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh and I eat well and I grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table. When company comes, nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I, too, sing America. Good evening to Chair Haggerty, Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler, board members, and Superintendent Taylor. Those spoken words are from the poem I, Too, which was written by literary legend and artist Langston Hughes. It depicts hope despite his lived experiences of oppression, racism, and injustice. His writings were considered insightful, colorful portrayals of Black life in America from the 20s through the 60s, which was important in shaping the artistic contributions of the Harlem Renaissance. Today and later this month, we will present to you, as connected with the national theme of Black History Month, Black art, while celebrating Black genius, Black joy, Black pride, and Black resilience. Throughout this month and year, we commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education ruling and the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, and acknowledge there is still much work to do. We reaffirm our priority and our commitment to combat racial inequalities and inequities in our school system and beyond. The courage, persistence, and resilience from Black parents and students, community members, and activists, despite resistance, remain a tribute to our commitment in breaking old traditions and dismantling systems in order to create new future possibilities for our generations to come. Let us, as James Weldon Johnson once stated, march on till victory is won. This month, we celebrate our district's Black educators, which include 1,883 certified staff, 1,455 non-certified staff, 239 administrative staff, and this makes up roughly 1/5 of our total staff for the Wake County Public School System. We also acknowledge the 34,425 Black students within the Wake County Public School System, which makes up approximately 21% of total students. During this month, and in collaboration with our academics department, we have identified and will be providing schools with high-quality instructional materials that align with our core belief 5, and our equity policy as we center students, Black students, and affirm their lived experiences, culture, and identities. In addition to the support being provided to schools and to students, as Chair Haggerty already mentioned, we do acknowledge the historical November 2022 election. For the first time, our community elected 3 Black board members, Vice Chair Johnson Hostler, Swanson, and Waters. We recognize our current superintendent, Dr. Robert P. Taylor, during this month, in addition to the former superintendents that you mentioned already, and Dr. Bill McNeil. And many other notable Black leaders contributed immensely to our school system, and community, including but not limited to Harriet Webster, Maurice Boswell, Luther Cherry, William Crockett, Gladys Grissom, Ann Hooker, Julie Mizell, Leon Herndon, and Diane Kent Parker. These leaders were legends. They led with heart and grace, and they were leaders of leaders. We are so honored tonight to share and present to you, and proud of the impact that our Black students and families, educators, and leaders have had on our school system, our community, and nation. It is my honor now to introduce my colleague, Dr. Janine Perry Campbell, who has been the curator of tonight's events and presentation, as well as the event that will happen later on this month, up to the mic to join me and to introduce what you are about to witness. Thank you so much for having us and giving us this opportunity today.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Chambers. Good evening, Chairman Haggerty, Vice Chair Johnson Holster, board members, Dr. Taylor, our leaders, staff, and guests. I am very honored to be before you this evening to recognize, honor, and celebrate Black history. I am Dr. Janine Perry Campbell, and I am the Director for Student and Educator Engagement. And I would also like to introduce my cohort, which is Chauncey Hatcher. He serves as our Senior Administrator for Student and Educator Engagement. At your place settings, you will see a piece of kente cloth as well as a flyer advertising our event on February the 22nd. This year's national theme for Black History Month is African Americans in the Arts, and we chose to celebrate it with our students by daring to dream, and you'll hear more about that in a few moments. But I wanted to give you a very quick history on kente cloth. Kente cloth is custom made in Western Africa. This fabric has been made since the 11th century. So let's just think about that time. It was made since the 11th century. The symbols and colors are used to communicate. The patterns that you'll see on your kente stoves tell direction, they tell about wisdom, royalty, and also it's a diasporatic genealogy that weaves a pattern of our knowledge and our pride. Aligning with our goal of excellence and equity and our equity-focused practice of centering student voice, tonight I have the extreme pleasure of presenting several of our students who will share their voices as they engage in our Black History recognition. And now I introduce to you Mr. Kwame Ansah.
Good evening. My name is Kwame Ansah. I am a senior at South Garner High School. I am also a mentee at Helping Hands Youth Ministry. This year's national theme for Black History is African American in the Arts. African Americans have shared their lived experiences throughout music, poetry, dance, art, and literature. This platform is found throughout not only African American history, but American history itself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maurice Toon Jr., and I am a sophomore at Enloe Magnet High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. One platform created by African American is spirituals, which developed into Black American gospel music in the late 19th and 20th centuries. Gospel music intermingles African and American cultural traditions, rhythms, styles, and beliefs to express the Black experience of resilience through faith. This genre of music laid the foundation for not just ragtime, but blues and jazz. Let's listen to the gospel choir of Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School as their voices are centered through song. The faculty advisor is Ms. Keisha Freeman, and the choir is directed by Ms. Monique Gill. This is their first performance since 2011, as the choir is rebuilding and has its enthusiastic students and faculty who are members.
Thank you, Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School. Good evening. I am Daphne Estes, and I am in the 5th grade at Linroad Elementary School. Thank you for inviting us to center our voices and share a glimpse of our rich heritage as we celebrate Black History Month. Tonight, we want to recognize the power that African American music has in our society. Our music serves as a backdrop for providing a voice for justice, freedom, and change. We hope you have enjoyed this form of expressive art. We invite you to celebrate with us on Thursday, February 22nd from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Southeast Raleigh Magnet High School at the Office of Equity Affairs, Dare to Dream African Americans and the Arts program, which will showcase the musical, dance, literary talents, and moreover 100 Wake County Public School System students from across our great district.
Right. Thank you, students. Thank you, Dr. Chavis. Thank you, everyone involved in this information item. And Dr. Taylor, I believe we will have continued items coming at our next meeting as well. All right, part 2 coming up. Thank you all. We were so excited for the information item that I have been reminded while we amended the agenda, we never actually voted to adopt the agenda. So please forgive me. Let's go back and we will conduct another roll call vote. So now we need a vote to adopt the amended meeting agenda with our 2 amendments that have been incorporated. And so, as by roll call, we'll go around the room. Mr. Hershey.
Aye.
Dr. Ing,
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds,
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Ms. Johnson-Hostler,
Aye.
Mr. Swanson,
Aye.
and Ms. Caulfield.
Aye.
All right, now that we have an approved meeting agenda, we will turn to the public comment portion. And again, please forgive my oversight. Speakers commenting on items on the night's agenda will be heard tonight before speakers heard on other topics. All other speakers will be heard in order of sign-up. Again, we do give priority to our Wake County Public Schools students to give them a chance to speak first. Only the person speaking at the podium will be able to stand during those comments. Again, all attendees that are not speaking are to remain seated. Now, if you do have to leave the room, please don't remain in the building, as this is the only room open to the public. The rest of the building is closed after hours. If the public comment portion of the agenda exceeds 30 minutes, board policy states that the chair reserves the right to conduct the rest of the meeting and then come back to hear the remaining speakers at the podium. Members of the public are welcome to offer comments or criticism directed at substantive ideas, actions, or procedures of the board and individual board members. The laws and policies of North Carolina provide that issues or concerns involving individual personnel and individual student matters are confidential and therefore not appropriate for public comment settings. Those offering comments to the board, including students, may discuss issues and matters of general concern. Concerns related to those same personnel and student matters I just mentioned, they may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, and other applicable policies. If you need help finding someone, we can refer you to someone after the meeting, perhaps here on the central staff, to help you. In the interest of maintaining civility and decorum, speakers are encouraged to address their comments to the Board of Education, those of us up here, and must refrain from personal attacks and insults directed at the board, individual board members, staff, and please not members of the general public or your fellow speakers. Please remain at the podium during your speaking time. Any materials you wish to share with the board should be handed to our board attorney, Mr. Rod Malone, either before or after your comments. During public comments, you may speak for up to 3 minutes. Please note the microphones are adjustable. When you begin, the green light at the podium will illuminate, showing that your 3 minutes have begun. Yellow light will light up when you've got 1 minute left. There'll be an audible tone. When there are, not a minute left, a yellow light will light up with an audible tone when you have 30 seconds left. And then finally, you'll see a red light when your time has expired. You'll hear another audible tone. When your time is up, the next speaker will be called to the podium. Speakers are asked to respect the time limit and speak to no more than their 3 minutes. So now, we will start with our first item. As I mentioned, our students are given priority. So the first student up will be Parthavi Joshi, followed by Jeanette Evans. Welcome.
Good evening. I am a Wake Young Women's Leadership Academy Outstanding Women Leader. My name is Parthavi Joshi, and I am a junior at Waiwilla. Each day for 5 years, this is the start of the creed we repeat every day in girls' leadership class. In this class, we are taught the essentials and the importance of leadership in marginalized communities. Today, a group of me and my fellow students will come before you and present our concerns and hopefully make a difference in the minds of our esteemed board members. We will be outlining the impact our school's vision has had on us and expressing our concerns going forward with the school years to come. We have been taught to be ready to lead, so here we are. We ask that you will be receptive to our concerns and help us feel more secure in our plan for the school. I challenge myself and others to excel each day. At main campus, where grades 6 through 10 are housed, our accelerated curriculum has benefited and pushed us to the limits of our capabilities. Our school is fortunate enough to have a wide variety of diverse students and accommodations for all levels. But even with the help and support afforded to us, it is with the intention that everyone should be able to keep up with the rigorous curriculum that we are required to know. And this workload has required us to have a level of dedication that has cost us years of blood, sweat, and tears. Although we are grateful for having the opportunity for such a high education, the stress that is compiled over the 5 years of accelerated study is not something to be overlooked. Because of this stress, the transition to a college campus is something that a majority of students look forward to. However, the uncertainty of the existence of our partnership with St. Augustine's University and any four-year university in general has only added to the stress faced by main campus students and to us, juniors, who have to deal with the uncertainty and lack of stability.
Thank you. Next up, Jeanette Evans will be followed by Isabella Titus.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette Evans, and I am also a junior at Wake Women's Leadership Academy. I'm the oldest of 5 siblings, 3 of which who are currently in the either Wake Women's or Lake Men's Leadership Academies, and 1 who is prospecting to attend in 2 years. Okay, and this decision would impact my family because it would provide difficulty for us with our finances and also with our educational goals as a whole. I accept responsibility for my decisions and my actions. As a school that trains leaders and encourages them to communicate with groups, we are encouraged to have strong communications with others and other people that we work with. And with our school starting in the 6th grade, there is a lot of potential for us to do something regrettable as children. However, we are not discouraged from making mistakes, but encouraged to take responsibility for them. Vulnerability is a very important part of leadership because it establishes a strong foundation between the leader and the people they lead. What we are asking for is acknowledgement from the school board that previous action could have been taken to prevent the surge of uncertainty that has emerged concerning our partnership with SAU. This is not to disrespect the authority of the board, but rather to show the students and parents that are being heard, because quite honestly, it does not feel that way. I am a leader of a future generation who demonstrates integrity in all I say and do. As was previously mentioned, many of us are concerned about the future of our schools. Many of our parents feel the same way about all of the work that we have put into our futures. We have worked so hard to get a head start on the college experience, especially since many of our students would not be able to afford the tuition without the extra boost. We are here today because we believe that it is necessary to advocate for the potential of our schools and their ability to give us the opportunities and advantages that we were promised. This is what we were taught to do as leaders, to speak out about the concerns of the masses when it appears we are not being heard. We are not here to attack the school board, but rather to convey our confusion and uncertainty of what the long-term plan is for the academies. All that we are requesting is transparency and accountability from our leaders so that everyone can have a clear understanding of what is wrong and what we need to do to fix the problems at hand.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Isabella Titus, followed by Elizabeth Bellica.
Due to the order of their speeches, we're switching. My name is Elizabeth Bellica, and I'm also a junior at Wake Young Women's Leadership Academy. As a student, I collaborate with my sisters and teachers to create a successful school. A huge part of the culture at YWLA is the connections we make, both with fellow students and with teachers. These connections have shaped me as a person, and I know they have done the same for my peers. During the online phase of the pandemic, it was difficult to form connections with our teachers and friends. It was also difficult for many of us to pay attention due to a lack of engagement from being on a computer screen all day. And in light of uncertainty as to the physical location of YWLA next year, we would appreciate knowing if we will have to spend our senior year online. Our ability to succeed and make connections in our last year is incredibly important to us, and as you consider where to put us, please know that we worked for years for the academic and financial privilege of taking in-person college classes at no expense. So please consider that when making your decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So now we will turn to Isabella Titus. And then after Ms. Titus, we'll move to our off-agenda speakers. Our first speaker will be Nicole Baldridge.
Good evening, board members, chairman, and guests. My name is Gabriella Titus. I'm standing in for my twin, Isabella Titus. And my concern with the accreditation conflict with St. Augustine's University is because I am one of 3 siblings in the 11th grade at the Leadership Academy programs, whose financial likelihood would be affected by the inability to transfer college credits to my future university of choice. And now to finish off the creed that my peers started with and that we strive to embody every day, I say with pride and dignity, I am Wake Young Women's Leadership Academy. No matter what happens to the program, it is still provide us with all the tools that we have gained to become strong women leaders. We want to see the success of the school. We just ask for a closer consideration from the WCPS board on what that means for the upcoming school year and for the years to come. We do not wish to tell you what to do. We are simply raising our concerns to seek change, so a program will be able to continue with the qualities it was formed under. We, students of Wake Young Women's Leadership Academy, thank you for your time and attention to our matter. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. We'll now move to our off-agenda speakers. Our first speaker tonight is Nicole Baldridge, who will be followed by John Baylog. Good evening, Ms. Baldridge.
Good evening. Hi, I am Nicole. I'm here with Public Schools Strong. I am a former teacher and a mother of 3 children, 2 who are currently in public school in Wake County. I am here to encourage you all as you move into budgeting season to continue to reach out to the legislature. I understand that the budget that we have at Wake County is somewhat, unfortunately, set by the legislature. I encourage you, as you go into your work sessions, as you discuss the legislative priorities, to continue to think of the investment in compensation to attract and retain top talent, understanding that many of our current teachers and staff are working 2 and 3 jobs to pay their bills, that if we do not make massive investments in these people, we will lose them, as we have been losing them since the early 2000s, and especially in 2020. I understand that there's a big goal to raise the pay to the highest in the Southeast by 2026. That is the goal that was set by the NCPA, which is the Principals Association. And I know that that's a big goal. It's incredibly important to do that in order to, again, attract and retain that top talent. I am aware of many of my former educators who have left North Carolina schools and are working in schools in South Carolina and Virginia because they pay better. And they have to be able to take care of their families, and that's one of the ways they can do it. I know that Wake County has been meeting that pay gap of paying for master's pay, and I understand that that is going to be a huge lift if the legislature does not fill in that gap, and I encourage you to continue to reach out to the legislature, as we at Public School Strong will be doing, because once that becomes 100% Wake County's responsibility, that's going to be a huge lift on our budget that we maybe don't have. For those of you that are unaware, I know that you as a board are definitely aware, but North Carolina is 50th in school funding currently in the nation, 50th, 40th, 8th overall in funding total per student. If we want to be top schools, we also need to be top in funding. There's just no way around that. And I understand that, again, this is a legislative issue as much as it is a board decision, but we're in this together. Listening to the work session, I agree that increased funding for special groups is incredibly critical and important, that pushing beyond the 13% cap that the legislative board has put on us, that in order for us to continue to develop and fund and take care of our students with special needs, we're going to need more money than that per student. So in closing, the big thing that I want to say is we are fighting with you, and on February 22nd, the Landier case is going to be heard again at the courts, and we will be there in person, and we encourage you to be there as well.
Next up is Mr. John Baylog, followed by Ms. Becky Lou Hobbs. Good evening, Mr. Baylog.
Good evening. You need to do more music like that. I'll show up more often. That was very good. Good evening, board members. Thank you for your time. I have a simple request. Ask your teachers to remove their pride flag stickers from their laptops. In 2023, the CDC reported approximately 25% of high schoolers identified as LGBTQT, 12% bisexual, 5.2 were questioning, 3 were gay or lesbian, 2% didn't understand the question. If you remove the 5 and the 2%, it's about 18%. That leaves 82% not identifying with that label. In most cases, students look up to their teachers for guidance and direction. I spoke to a few students this weekend, ages 10 to 13. 5th through 7th grade. Surprisingly, they brought up the subject. I asked them how their classes were going. They felt intimidated by the pride flag sticker being on their teacher's laptop, and they mentioned more and more putting it on. These students, the 82%, do not agree or identify with that label. They didn't feel comfortable speaking with those teachers. Apparently, the labels are having a reverse effect of making the teachers accessible. Pride stickers have nothing to do with the curriculum, or maybe it does. The number of adults in the U.S. identifying as some form of LGBTQT has doubled in 10 years, from 3.5% to 7%. That's per Gallup. Others put the number at 5.5%. Is it possible the schools are influencing the increase? What should the school system be concerned with? The latest numbers for school performance in Wake County on the WCPSS website shows not proficient the following. This was just today. I was checking. Math, 37%. These are not proficient. That means grade level. NC Math 1, 67%. NC Math 3, 29%. Reading, 39%. Science, 27%. Biology, 38%. English, 29%. Roughly 1/3 of your classes are below grade level. Perhaps the sticker should say, I love math. Maybe that'll get them interested. Why are you spending the time and money on CRT, DEI, SEL, LGBTQT, plus on your students when it's obvious you have a serious deficiency in your core courses? You do a great disservice to your students. It is great to encourage pride in your students. Show pride when they accomplish a job well done. Show pride in this great country. Show pride when the math, science, reading scores are at an acceptable level. I pray for wisdom for this board when making life-impacting decisions to these children. Proverbs 3:13, how blessed is the man and woman who finds wisdom, and the man and woman who obtains discernment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Balog. Next up, Becky Lou Hobbs, followed by Nathaniel Dibble. Good evening.
Going to be a little off the cuff here since you changed the agenda. I'm Becky Lou Hobbs. I'm a longtime Wake County resident, mom to 3 amazing kids, and chapter chair to Moms for Liberty in Wake County. I'm going to start off with a question regarding policy 3540, comprehensive health education section. Education policy. In section B, it states the principal or designee shall notify parents, but the policy doesn't state how they're going to notify parents. We've got almost 200 schools with almost 200 principals, so the method of communication really needs to be standardized. In my experience, these notices are typically just a piece of paper that hopefully come home in the backpack. And anyone with a child knows these papers don't always make it home in one piece. So can you clarify to add a means of communication to that policy, preferably multiple means of communication? There are many available in addition to a piece of paper. Talking points, email blasts, text notices. I'm sure I'm missing a few, but there's many ways that communication can be had back to, given back to the parents. Also, there's a sentence in the opening statement about the board may, in its discretion, expand on the subject areas, and that's really, really open-ended. So if you could, narrow that down, that leaves a wide range for things to be interpreted in different ways. So my last thing I got here is I had a concern about one of the grant proposals. It was the one that was removed, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. It's called We Need Diverse Books. And according to the proposal, there was no parameters, no values stated, no details regarding what grade level it was going to be for. The abstract was very scant, had less than 50 words. Nothing which was about, when you went to their website, correlated with what they promoted. But on their website, they defined diversity to include gender diversity. And then when you look into their financial backers, they had one in particular, Acton Family Giving, that their values, one of their core values was gender and reproductive equity. So my question with these grants, this one and any other ones, promoting gender identity to kindergarten through 4th grade violates state law. The North Carolina Parents' Bill of Rights states that gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality shall not be included. So how did that even get to being on the agenda if it's promoting that? Because it didn't have a restriction, it's open to all grades. That needs to be taken into account on how we get that information to kids, because there's been a big question from many parents about how these books are getting into schools. Because curating books for our libraries needs to have educational value. It doesn't mean you have every book, but libraries are not big enough for that, because I guarantee you, I have some books that you'll never have because they're that rare. You have to make sure that what's in the school libraries is what's going to be educational to our children.
Thank you, Ms. Luhabs. Next up is Nathaniel Dibble, who will be followed by Heather Coons. Is Mr. Dibble here? Going once? All right, if Mr. Dibble returns before we finish public comment, we will add him to the end of the agenda. Next up, we'll hear from Heather Coons, followed by Kenny Xu. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I want to second the vote for the singing, and that was wonderful. I'm grateful I was here for that tonight. But my name is Heather Coons, and I'm the proud parent of 2 graduates from Wake County Public Schools, and I'm here today or tonight to ask all of you to encourage everyone associated with Wake County Public Schools to increase the volume on the fight for public schools in the state. I know you all know how much public schools are under attack across the country, and it's especially bad here in North Carolina. The last decade has been awful here for school funding, but this voucher expansion takes things to a new, horrible level. In the news today, I read that applications for next year's vouchers are at a record high. So this is no surprise, because every family who sent a child to private school last year is probably applying. And the General Assembly doubled the voucher marketing budget to $1 million this year. That's $1 million that should be going to educate students. I appreciate so much that everyone in Wake County is working for students every day. I had kids, like I said, in Wake County public schools for 15 years, and so I totally get it. But about 70% of the state doesn't have kids in school. They don't know about the great things happening, and they don't know how much better public schools are than most private schools. They don't know that where vouchers have expanded in other states, and that there are actually test scores to compare, that the learning loss for voucher students was as bad as what we've seen for the pandemic. The public doesn't know that when students return to public schools after trying out a charter school or private school, they're often way behind their public school classmates. They don't know that there are way more educational choices in public schools. We have so many more programs and better programs than private schools. The public doesn't know how much segregation and discrimination is happening in charter and private voucher schools. White flight academies are currently being funded by North Carolina state dollars now, and that wasn't even allowed in 1960. If there was ever a time to take the gloves off, it's now. We are the largest district in the state, and we should use this huge voice to lead the charge in supporting public education across the state. Please encourage teachers and principals to share good news about public schools loudly, and let them talk about the problems with charter schools and private school vouchers. You are probably already fighting really hard behind the scenes, but public statements matter too. In Wake County, is Wake County on the list of districts that came out against vouchers? 19 rural districts wrote an open letter against vouchers. Wake County could write a letter too, or sign on to theirs. There are so many districts throughout the state that need our county's support. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Coons. So next up will be Kenny Xu, followed by Joseph Deaton. Good evening.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board. I'm Kenny Xu. I am the author of this article in the Raleigh News Observer that was picked up last Friday, and I'm your 13th District Congressional candidate. So in this article, I talked about issues in Wake schools according to parents. And my purpose in being here today is to elaborate upon those issues as a challenge, but hopefully as a service to you. because I've talked with many voters about these issues, and these are some of the concerns that they relay that may aid you as you attempt to attract back parents who you have lost from the pandemic, now that enrollment has been down from your pre-pandemic high of 163,000 students. It is now at 157,000 students. Now, I understand that the superintendent told us today, that the new study from Harvard and Stanford shows that you have reached pre-pandemic academic levels. That is good, because last year you weren't there yet. That is one concern that parents were explaining. That was the latest data that I had to make the article. But another issue that many parents have been expressing in this forum to me is concerns about school safety. The November 15th shooting has left a mark on the school system, and parents are concerned about whether you will extend an SRO plan to elementary, middle, and high schools. Currently, you have them in some middle schools and high schools, but you don't have them in all of them. And another concern that parents have is, will you defend magnet schools and individualized instruction when your DPI superintendent calls them the quote-unquote worst perpetrators of inequality? I get it, I understand that, but they're wrong. Wake County has some of the best magnet schools in the nation, according to your own words, and you need to speak up and defend individualized instruction in the face of these attacks, in the name of quote-unquote equity. Finally, what are your plans for when the ESSER 2025 funding runs out from the federal government? That was pandemic funding. It is going to run out. We as voters and as concerned people need to hear from you about your comprehensive plan for how you're going to accommodate your budget to upcoming federal government level cuts in the education system. We would like to hear that so that we can make our decisions as parents and voters accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so with that, unless Mr. Dibble has returned? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mr. Deaton. I was jumping ahead. Mr. Deaton, it looks like you will close us out. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
After the last meeting where I suggested remembering Dr. Paul Cornely during Black History Month, I was questioned on something. During his dissent, or in his dissent from the 1972 Presidential Commission on Population, Dr. Cornely warned that if you give contraceptives and instruction to minors, that you would destroy the foundation of family life. I cited the rise in out-of-wedlock births as one measure of how Dr. Cornely's prediction was right. But I was asked how could I attribute that trend to the commission in 1972 when the trend had already begun in the early 60s. The answer is that commission was an effort to shift things that were already underway into high gear through federal policy with massive federal funding. For example, as far back as the 20s and 30s, there were state-run and private birth control clinics in 7 southern states that targeted African Americans, and also in Puerto Rico. And birth control was widely available even before the 1965 Griswold Supreme Court decision. You and your predecessors in education over the years have perhaps unknowingly carried out part of the strategy of the population control movement by providing the type of sex education that Dr. Cornely warned about. The neo-Malthusians have achieved their goal of getting our birth rate below replacement, and you might think that is good, but we must consider the human costs in terms of out-of-wedlock births and unstable families with all their attendant problems that causes children. To be sure, societal factors outside the schools have a major impact, but you shouldn't be adding fuel to the fire by sex education that tempts minors to engage in premarital activity. You must instead listen to Dr. Cornley and present the social science data that shows that premarital sex works against forming lifelong relationships. And you must make it abundantly clear that all contraceptives have a failure rate and that none ever protected anyone from a broken heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deaton. And so that concludes our public comment period. So let's take a quick minute here. Now that we've changed the agenda around, I want to make sure that I have the most accurate copy.
Chair Haggerty.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hershey.
For clarification on a vote we took about the grant, was that not going to an action item, or is that just
No,
complete? Okay.
That was simply moved to give staff time to prepare information that was not available for tonight's meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. I'm just checking to see if the items we moved were before or after our policy items. All right. Looks like after. Okay. So then we'll begin with the long-range capping recommendations. I believe presenting this will be Glenn Carrozza and Marcella Rory. Good evening, Ms. Rory.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for this time. Staff is seeking approval of...
Excuse me 1 second.
Mr. Chair, we need a motion to approve consent before we move to action.
That's right. It
Thanks
sure
to
is.
Ms. Allen, not Ms. Johnson-Hosler. So, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thanks. You can tell sometimes you're on your game, and then other times teamwork makes the dream work. So, Ms. Rory, if you don't mind, if you would pause, Vice Chair Johnson-Hosler has moved that we go ahead and adopt the consent agenda as amended, with the 2 items moved to action and the 1 item removed from the consent agenda. Did I see a second from Mr. Hershey? Yes. Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion. Oh, and I heard the voice of Mr. Swanson as well. So we will go through. This will be a vote to approve the consent agenda as amended. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Vice Chair Johnson-Hosler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, now we have adopted the consent agenda. Now we will return to our action items. And now, apologies for the delay, we turn it back over to Ms. Rory to talk about our long-range capping recommendations. Good evening, Ms. Rory.
Good evening. Staff is seeking approval of the capping recommendations. The cap removal of Apex Elementary, Highcroft Drive Elementary, and Mills Park Elementary. We are also seeking approval of the overflow changes for Parkside Elementary and Panther Creek High School by the Board of Education. The recommended approvals would be for the remainder of the 2023-24 school year and the 2024-25 school year. The capping recommendations were presented at the Facilities Committee January 17th, 2024. Staff's recommendation is based on several factors that include board feedback, principal feedback, a review of base student percentages, projected growth, and school capacities. Staff will continue to carefully monitor the impact on overflow schools and is seeking board approval at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Rory. Mr. Hershey, you have a question?
No, I was going to make a motion to approve the capping recommendations by staff.
That is amazing, because I was going to ask for a motion to approve the capping recommendations recommended by staff. So we have said motion by Mr. Hershey. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from Ms. Edmonds, and also from Mr. Swanson. Do we have any discussion or any questions for staff at this time? I know this was something that was discussed in Facilities Committee. I know there was a thorough discussion there, but just in case anyone who wasn't able to attend, or if anyone has any further questions. Are there anyone? All right, so then are we ready for a vote? All right, there's a motion on the table to adopt the staff recommendations to lift the capping recommendations at the so-named schools. All in favor? We will go around the table. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
The chair says aye. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right. It looks like we have all of the votes were in favor. The motion passes. We've
Thank
adopted the
you.
recommendations. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Rory.
you. Have-
All right. So now we will turn to numerous policies that are coming back to us from Policy Committee. Let's see here. This first one, Board Policy 3540, is coming to us on first reading. I think we have Mr. Glenn Denning, our Senior Administrator for Healthful Living. Good evening, Mr. Glenn Denning.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight I'm bringing Policy 3540, Comprehensive Health Education Program, for first reading. Policy was written by the NC School Boards Association and is part of the Policies to Lead Schools Manual, and we are bringing it as part of our policy migration project. The policy was discussed at the January 23rd Board Policy Committee meeting, and pertinent items in this policy use languages and reference the alignment to North Carolina general statutes, including General Statute 181 or 115C81.30 and .25. Once adopted, it will replace current policy 5120, Healthful Living Education. Tonight, we request the board's approval of the first reading of Policy 3540, Comprehensive Health Education Program.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn Denning. Do we have a motion to adopt Policy 3540 on first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Edmonds. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler. Is there any discussion, debate, or questions for staff? Ms. Edmonds.
I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Glendenning. So I missed the movie. I missed the meeting, but I went back and watched it, and I saw you knock it out of the park, and everybody was so impressed because y'all weren't left with any questions, and I wasn't either. So I just wanted to say well done. Thank you so much for your work on this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there any further questions or comments from the board? Mr. Glendenning, I would ask, we heard a question about just the methods of notice that the school would use. What's the staff's recommendation? Is there rules and procedures or something that will be adopted to provide some uniformity among the district, or how will you address that?
So there's two procedures that are already in place. We have a 60-day minimum parental notice that goes home that says these items are in the school for any parent who wants to come and look at the actual curriculum. And then 2 weeks prior to the actual instruction, parents receive another notice reminding them that they have the opportunity to opt out of all or part of the reproductive health and safety program. Those are written notices. Those are usually sent home as paper notices. I made a note during that comment that we can, in our teacher training, we have a mandatory teacher training that we do on our Learning Central platform that our teachers use. I can put it in there as to use talking points or to use other modalities in addition to the paper. We will continue with the paper, but in addition to that, we can certainly use other modalities.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Glendenning. Are there any further comments or questions? Ms. Caulfield?
Thank you. I appreciate that because I will say even high school students have a tendency to not actually deliver the mail that's coming. Sometimes the real mail doesn't even make it from the mailbox to the table. So I'm just, I appreciate having talking points because that is direct contact from the teacher. That's where I get most of my updates, and it is extremely helpful. So I appreciate the talking points and you adding that on to there. Thanks.
And I know that we have a question from Mr. Swanson. Mr. Swanson, if you're ready.
Yes, thank you. I agree with the talking points, but I just have a clarifying question with that. And it's been a while since I've been out of the classroom, so forgive me. But in order to use talking points, that means parents would have to make sure that their contact information is up to date, whether it's the email or phone number. Is that correct?
I can't speak to that directly, but communication says yes, that is correct.
Correct. Just that works. So I just hope that those parents that if they have some changes in their, phone numbers or whatnot, that they are notifying the school staff at their school, at their child's school, to ensure that they're getting those communications.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Swanson. Any further questions? All right, then, we have a motion on the table to approve this policy on first reading. Again, we will take our votes by roll call. We'll go around the table. All in favor, votes in favor, Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Ms. Johnson-Hostler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, Board Policy 7100, Recruitment and Selection of Personnel on first reading. Looks like we have Dr. Matillo who will be presenting to us tonight. Good evening, Dr. Matillo.
Good evening, all. I'll give a brief introduction of all 4 policies that I'm presenting tonight and then go through each of them individually so you can consider them individually. So tonight I'm bringing policies 7100, 7110, 7120, and 7130 all for first reading. These policies are part of the migration process where we update existing policies and propose new policies based on recommendations by the North Carolina School Boards Association and by our staff. We presented these policies at the January 23rd Policy Committee meeting. Tonight, I will again ask for action separately. As a reminder, the text in black font is existing Wake County policy in the case of 7100, and it will be, the black font will be existing School Board Association policy for the remainder of the policies I'm presenting. We also have red font, which is the School Board Association revisions, blue, which are staff revisions, and then I think there's an instance of green where we just moved language within the same policy. Since I have so much today, just wanted to review all of that with you real quick. So policy 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel. This is a revised policy which includes revisions recommended by the School Board Association. To highlight a few of them, in Section A, Paragraph 2, you'll remember we moved the reference to 40 or older up in that policy to the prior sentence to reflect more clearly the obligations and protections under the Age Discrimination Act in employment. We also discussed the initial clause in the 3rd paragraph of Section C, referencing Section D for criminal records checks for child care providers. So we revised the wording to clarify that the child care providers, Section D, are in addition to these obligations that are in Section C. And then lastly, we changed state records to read record checks in the jurisdictions identified, because sometimes they are not always states, but local jurisdictions. So once adopted, these several policies will be incorporated and rescinded from the old manual. So policy 2000 will be able to strike parts A, C, D, N, and R. And the rest of these policies we will be able to strike in their entirety. So that's policy 3003 and 4003 for criminal records checks, policy 3010 and 4010 for equal employment opportunities, policy 3020 and 4020 for recruitment and selection, 3022 and 4022 for hiring procedure, and 3034, 4034, and 6434 for registered sex offenders, and then policy 3034, 4034, and 6434 RMP, as well as 3310 and 4310 for advertising vacancies. I'm sorry, that's my longest one I think that I have for you this evening. So tonight we are requesting the board's approval for the first reading of policy 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Matillo. Is there a motion from the board for adoption of policy 7100 on first reading?
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler, second by Ms. Caulfield. Any discussion or debate? Again, thank you, Dr. Matillo. I know that the board had some specific comments on this one, and I believe all of them have been incorporated, and it looks very good. So if there are no comments, hold on, I need to just check, make sure Mr. Swanson doesn't have any. Okay. All in favor, then, of adoption of the policy on first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You got
Oh, yes, yes.
I knew
yes.
you were. I knew I was going first anyway.
I miss my parliamentarian. We'll start with Mr. Hershey.
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right. The motion passes. We'll now move to the second item, and I have to keep switching screens now. This will be Policy 7110, information provided by applicant or employee on first reading. Is there a motion for passage of the policy on first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hershey, second by Ms. Caulfield. Any discussion or debate? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. We'll now move to Board Policy 7120, the Employee Health Certificate, on first reading. Do we have a motion for adoption of the policy on first reading?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hershey.
Second.
Second by Mr. Swanson. Any discussion or debate or questions about this policy? Again, a testament to our fine policy committee. We'll move forward then with a roll call vote, starting with Mr. Hershey.
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
Thank you. And the final policy, Policy 7130. Do we have a motion for adoption of the policy on first reading? This is the policy on licensure.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Hershey,
Second.
second from Vice Chair Johnson-Hostler. Any discussion, any questions, any comments from the board? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds? Aye. Chair votes aye.
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, by unanimous vote, Board Policy 7130 passes on first reading. Thank you very much, Dr. Matillo.
Appreciate y'all.
All right. Okay, so now we go to our amended agenda, and we have some items on academic advancement that were moved from consent. So I believe, is Joe Honeycutt here? There she is. Ms. Honeycutt will be presenting these two items, both on CTE and our accelerator program.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Haggerty, Superintendent Taylor, members of the board. We have two items. I'm not that tall, is that what you're saying? We have two items for your consideration tonight. Both of them are connected to our Summer Career Accelerator programming, and they have been funded by ESSER dollars to date. The first is a contract to Wake Ed Partnership. Wake Ed Partnership has been a partner in our summer work since we started it 2 summers ago. And in this contract, they give us support for recruiting and training business partners, for immersions for our students during the week camp or 2-week camps, whatever we have. We've changed that over time. But they do the training of the business partners, they do some training with our teachers, and they provide us logistical support under this contract and agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have related to the item.
All right, Ms. Edmonds?
I'm responsible for this, so thank you for being here. I know you probably didn't plan to be, but I appreciate it. I mean, it's CTE month after all, so I felt it was appropriate just to make sure. Are you in discussions or having, developing plans to continue this after the ESSER funds dry up? And if not, why?
I think that is still to be determined. I think the scale that we have been able to do under the ESSER funds that we had will be very difficult for us to sustain. And I think the other thing I would add to that is that the ESSER funds were targeted to help students who missed opportunities during the pandemic. So we felt it was really important because students didn't have opportunities to be in businesses, to have immersions, to have the work-based learning, and some of that development in the pandemic, that we offer that in summer programming. Now that we are back to a more normal school setting and businesses are opening their doors to us, students are able to have those experiences during the school year, during regular summer programming through internships.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Edmonds.
So I feel like you're telling me you're not too alarmed by losing these dollars. Am I misreading? I mean, I know we'd all like to keep them, but
I feel like we've been able to do really great things with the funds that we had. And the data and surveys from our students have said that the programs have been meaningful. At the same time, I feel like we have a staff and we have opportunities for students to be able to continue that. Which is not to say that if we did have private partner or business and industry partners that came to us and said they wanted to contribute funding to do a program on this scale or a lesser scale, we would certainly love to entertain that.
Okay, and last question, would you, if any of that comes to fruition, would you continue to partner with WakeEd Partnership if possible? Has that relationship been good for this specific purpose?
Yes, ma'am. WakeEd has been a good partner in many of our programs. The Career Accelerator was modeled very much after the summer STEM program that we've done with teachers for many years. It was kind of the perfect storm. They were wanting to pilot a program for students at the time that we had these funds become available. So instead of doing a small pilot, we did a very large pilot. And so it's been successful, and we would definitely continue that partnership.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair, for letting me pull those. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Edmonds. We won't even cite you for leading the witness. Are there any other comments or questions from the board for Ms. Honeycutt about the first of the two programs? All right, then, our second program. Are there any, do you have additional information you can share?
Well, District C is a little bit different. They have been a longtime partner as well. That program framework is a little bit different, where students work with local businesses. The businesses give the students a problem. The students work together in teams to research and find proposed solutions to the problem, and then they pitch that to the business folks at the end of the session. We have expanded District C all 3 years we've been in summer programs. We started with a handful of students. Last summer, we served about 140 students. We're planning for 9 sites and even more students this year. So again, they've been an outstanding partner. We're really excited that our plans for this summer include training some additional coaches so that those coaches can go back to their base schools and be able to offer the programming in a regular school year for the students at those schools.
Any questions or additional comments?
Yes, please. So with that one, was that existing prior to the pandemic?
We had started it prior to the pandemic at 2 sites, and we've continued it to offer it during school year at certain sites. But again, having the coaches trained is a wonderful opportunity to take the summer learning and be able to plan it in the regular school year.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Anyone else with any questions or comments? All right, we thank you, Ms. Honeycutt. This is a great opportunity that we have to kind of lift up some of our CT opportunities. Oftentimes we have amazing programs, but not every family knows they're available. So any chance we get to promote it through bringing it from consent to action gives us an opportunity to do so. So
thank you.
Thank you. All right, then. So these are both items that were on the consent agenda. Since they were not approved by consent, we'll go through each one individually and take a vote by roll call. All right? So we will start with the item specific to WakeEd Partnership for the summer program.
Do we need to make an official motion or not?
Yeah, I'm asking, I'm saying just we're going to start with one,
Okay,
not
right.
vote on both at the same time. So then, at this point, at this time, is there a motion to approve the contract with WakeEd Partnership for the described summer accelerator program?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Edmonds, second by Mr. Swanson. We'll take the roll call vote. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, we've approved the first contract. The second one is the one with District C. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
made by Ms. Edmonds, second by Mr. Swanson. Again, moving forward with a roll call vote. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The Vice Chair?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. So now we have adopted the last 2 items that were on the action agenda. And at this point, I would look for a motion to return to closed session for the statutory reasons cited previously in the work session.
So moved.
Oh,
hang
We
on.
can approve HR.
Well, you got personnel.
Yeah.
Oh,
we-
let's go
we
ahead
wanna
and do that now
Okay.
so that we
Withdraw.
don't have to wait around. I'll entertain any motion to approve the HR appointments and
So
the
moved.
requests for leave that were made in work session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Caulfield, seconded by Vice Chair Johnson Hostler. All in favor? Oh, got to do the roll call. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds? Aye. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, so we've adopted the HR recommendations for appointment and approved leave. Now, I would approve, or I would entertain any motion that we return to closed session for the statutory reasons cited previously in our work session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hershey to go into closed session. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Caulfield. Again, with our final, well, not our final vote, roll call vote of the evening, because we'll have to adjourn, but our final vote before going into closed session. Mr. Hershey?
Aye.
Ms. Edmonds? Aye. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair? Aye. Mr. Swanson?
Aye.
And Ms. Caulfield?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you all. We are now moving to closed session. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a good evening.